Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Poets at the Library, the virtual edition, that is. And this is an ongoing event that Princeton Public Library in Princeton, New Jersey has been hosting for over 10 years now, where we have area poets come into our library at least 5 times of the year to read poetry. This is a co-sponsored program by the US One Poets Cooperative and the Delaware Valley Poets. And we're so glad that we have been able to find a virtual way to bring poetry to you and to follow more or less the same format that we follow when we're live in the community room, which is to have 2 featured readers for the evening, followed by an open mic. And the open mic is a little bit more tricky here in this online environment, but we'll make it work tonight. And we have 8 readers signed up for open mic tonight, so hopefully we'll be able to get them all on screen within our allotted time. My name is Janie Herman. I'm the public programming librarian at the Princeton Public Library, and I'm so glad to see such a large and enthusiastic crowd here tonight. We're having lots of fun in the chat. We have people from all over, including from Quebec, in my home and native land of Canada, which makes me feel nice. And we are just excited to get going. And I see also so many familiar names from the library and from the Poets group on here, so it just feels like old home week happening. So if at any point you want to ask a question to our 2 readers, you can do so in the Ask a Question button. I'm going to leave, I will turn the, I will leave the chat on. We found out last time with doing this that it's nice to leave the chat on so that you can respond to the poets as they read their poems and give them your praise or a clap. But just try to be respectful of that and not overwhelm it. And so I think without further ado, we are just about everybody who signed up here now is showing up online. And I'm going to get us started. And at one point, I will also drop into the chat section the links where you can buy the books from. So I know I'm introducing to the hometown crowd 2 poets that need very little introduction. I'm going to introduce them both at once, and then we'll bring them up one after the other. But those who are joining us from further afield, let me allow you to introduce you to Lois Marie Herrod, whose 17th collection, entitled Woman, was published by Blue Lyra in February of 2020, and her chapbook, Spat, is slated to come out in the spring of 2021. Her Nightmares of the Minor Poet appeared in June of 2016, and her chapbook, And She Took the Heart, appeared in January 2016. In addition, she has many other chapbooks, including fragments from the biography of Nemesis, How Marlene May Longs for the Truth, and she is a Dodge poet who is published in literary journals and online e-zines from American Poetry Review to Zone 3. She teaches at the Evergreen Forum in Princeton, and you can go and find her work online at loismarieherrod.org. She'll read first, and then we'll bring up Wanda S Prasner, who is a recipient of fellowships from the New Jersey Council on the Arts, the Dodge Foundation, PFAWC, and VCCA. She has works in Atlanta Review, Lullwater Review, and Prairie Schooner. Her 5th book is, I should have asked how to pronounce this, is Natirar from Kelsey Books. And her 6th is To Illuminate the Way, which came out from Aldrich Press. A resident poet for the state, she's received 15 Pushcart Prize nominations, the Egan Award, the Princemere Prize, the Kudzu Award, First Prize in Poetry at the College of New Jersey's Writer Conference, and the 2017 New Jersey Poets Prize. As I said, tonight's event is presented in partnership with the US One Poets Cooperative and Delaware Valley Poets, with support from the National Endowments for the Humanities. So I am now going to disappear. I am going to be bringing Lois Marie up onto screen for her reading. Welcome, Lois Marie, and take it away.
Good evening. Thank you, Janie. And thank you to the Princeton Public Library for supporting US One and DVP poets. And thank you for all of you for coming, for zooming in to listen. I'm going to begin with a poem that says something about why I'm a writer. I grew up in a Protestant family where I was taught to keep my mouth shut. What my mother told me, not much. She wasn't much of a talker. Sometimes a tad. Be quiet in church. mostly cautionary. Chatter is the coin of fools. She didn't know that silence makes some uneasy and refused gossip. Be kind, she said, and I tried to harness my tongue, but the pen proved, as pens do, that writing is a sword, silent and sneaky. And the second poem, too, suggests something about my becoming a writer, though I didn't think of it that way when I wrote it. Every summer, we spent 2 weeks in Baltic, Ohio, where my grandmother and my mother sewed most of my clothes and those for my 2 sisters. I loved that house of my grandmother's. You entered the front door from the street, but since it was built on a steep hill, the back door led to a porch of full story above the ground. Once in Baltic, Ohio, I was a shallow girl in the flooding dusk, unaware of the depth of things. My grandmother floating beside me on the high porch, the swing chains shiny and creaking. And I heard the mockingbird's gutturals in the husky pear, without understanding how a bird might claim his own solitude in the vowels of another. And then it happened. Night with all its pins began pricking the dusk, as my grandmother had pricked my belly as she adjusted the waist of the new dress she was making for me. Every star needled its individual jeer, and the moon poked its curved thorn until the little pond below became so still I knew I could climb onto the porch railing and spiral down into the darkness, its body becoming my body, and never touch bottom. I miss traveling so much right now. I miss vacations. So I will take you to Baltic, Ohio, and then to 3 more places. Or rather, I just took you to Baltic, Ohio, and I'll take you to 3 more now. First, we will board a virtually safe 737 to Paris, where we will view Frederic Bazille's The Artist Studio in the Musée d'Orsay. It's one of those French Academy paintings where men, lots of men, are standing around looking at artwork. And I'm dedicating this poem to all my sister women who have said, "Me too," in the past several years. Those Me Too men, after Frederic Bazille's The Artist Studio, 1870, Musée d'Orsay. Let their brushwork be our proof. Though our bodies are undressed in these oil paintings studding the walls, let the window cast light so we see the suited men, name them. Though their sartorial gazes gaze elsewhere, the harpsichordist to his keys, the laddered poet to the would-be novelist, and the 2 wannabe daubers to the beard of the old portrayer, whose work they seem to be so deeply contemplating. Let us see each man for what he is, standing as he does, gesturing with his left hand, shielding his painting from our eyes. Something like that gynecologist who curtained himself between gymnast and mother. And now from Paris, I'm taking you off to the Virginia Center for Creative Arts in Amherst, Virginia. This is a love poem to that amazing little colony where I once observed a young woman filming ice cubes melting. And it's a love poem to clouds because the clouds there were often like volcanic eruptions. And it's a love poem too because I went alone. We stay most when we stay not at all. If Vesuvius were cloudquake, this morning the sky is just one more great catastrophe I want to save. Like the little old lady who saves needles, thinking pine sharps can pin the firmament in place. And you, too far to call to the balcony. But wasn't this our way? You calling me to see the cerulean warbler, I arriving late. Pliny the Younger described the Pompeian sky as a great umbrella pine, while across the bay his uncle rode out to meet the ashes. It's not enough to say, I want you here. In the foreground, wild cherries fall away from blossom. Somewhere in the middle distance, treetops turn gold, the Midas dream. Back inside my new room, the shadow of branches clot the blind. Who wants to be the old woman who won't give up anything? Her house smells of rot and mildew, and yet this morning, I do not want to relinquish one thready snarl floating from the mist. Maybe I should have been a Hudson River painter. Then I could place you, a small figure in the distance, with a top hat and a stick. Well, we've been to Baltic, Paris, Virginia, and we might as well travel even farther. We've been distancing ourselves for some time. Cosmic distancing. As you probably know, the universe is expanding, and astronomers have repeatedly calculated the rate of the universe's expansion, the Hubble constant, with two different techniques. And the problem is that the measurements are always in seemingly intractable conflict. Cosmic distancing. The stars, too, are moving apart, though cosmologists have not determined the quick. It's one speed when they measure from the start, another when they predict the end, or if not the end, the time all moves so distant, the cosmos appears empty. You know what I mean. The Hubble constant, inconstant, and already deceiving. You, in such a far corner of our little house, I no longer hear you. It's not deafness, it's not cheating, it's the cosmic virus spreading our galaxies. How soon? How fast? Please don't leave the room. Well, a couple more poems that connect with the pandemic. I've been reading books about the pandemics and plagues, and I realize that Daniel Defoe's Journal of the Plague Year mirrors all the reactions we've had here in the US the last 9 months, lots of lying and denial. And so this poem I actually wrote before the pandemic, but rereading it seems almost prescient. The woman who swallowed things. In high school, the usual, which pleased the boys. And in college, the predictable, goldfish and frogs with beer. And on a whim or a dare, and after a little practice, swords. Before graduating, she became the star of her sorority when she ate 69 hot dogs in 10 minutes. Later, she swallowed the diamond ring her fiancé put in a softie. Seems he thought it would be an unusual way to ask for her hand and her throat. And once she had that kid in diapers, She swallowed safety pins open and shut. The day she turned 45, she downed the restaurant spoons and forks. And most recently, she feasted on the more than 10,000 lies told by the president, which wasn't as bad as it sounds because by then, lots of other people were swallowing oddities too. Concrete walls and steel barriers, the Golan Heights, Bears Ears, Greenland with all its ice, and those nice white supremacists, which brought on a national epidemic of distressed intestines and shut down nearly every hospital and nursing home in the country. There no longer being medical insurance to cover belly aches, or for that matter, any poorly paid immigrants to fill the healthcare jobs. Unless, of course, you were very rich and had practice in swallowing it all whole. And the second pandemic poem is called What the Woman at the Well Told JC During the COVID-19 Crisis. If you were brought up as I was, that is having the Bible read at the breakfast table before you left for school, after dinner every night before you could leave the table, and then again before you went to bed, you would know the story of Jesus and the woman at the well. Jesus was walking through Samaria and stopped and asked a woman for a drink of water at the well. And she said, well, you're a Jew and I'm a Samaritan, and how can you ask me for a drink? It's a long history of conflict there. Thereupon ensued a discussion on real water and spiritual water. And Jesus finally told her to go and get her husband, and he would give her water, living water. And she said, I have no husband. And he says, you spake true. You had 5 husbands, and the one you're living with now isn't. Well, as a child, this really interested me. I couldn't quite figure it out. And eventually, of course, I did. But in this poem, I let the Samaritan woman speak. What the woman at the well told JC about the COVID-19 crisis. She asked him to forgive her for using so much toilet tissue, gobs and gobs to blow her nose and wipe off makeup, and yes, on more than one occasion to write a little haiku with eyeliner as she sat and thought the miseries of the universe. But now that toilet tissue had become so scarce, she limited herself to 2 sheets, no more. She would be careful. No more scribbling while her 5th, or was it her 6th husband, well, he wasn't really, was pounding at the bathroom door. Yes, she would wash her hands thoroughly with soap and water from the well, which sometimes, even though sea level was rising, seemed to be going dry. I guess that one packs both COVID and climate change in one poem. So I haven't had 5 husbands. I've only had one husband for 55 years. So over those 55 years, I've written a lot about marriage. And I'll read 3 poems. They're not necessarily about my marriage. They're just about marriage, most of them. One more thing about marriage. Sometimes one is amorous and the other steamy, or one erogenous, the other stoned. You know how it goes, how it went, the titillating zones gone groaning into the latitudes. One wants something, the other does not really, but goes along. Goodness knows, here's where morality crawls into bed, writing the other's rudimentaries. One wants to hear that amateur quartet play Scriabin's Andante and Scherzo for string orchestra, while the other contemplates clever things to say later. Well, that concert was worse than the one when the orchestra played Maurice Ravel's Pavane for a Dead Princess. Excruciating. The orchestra sawing on so slowly, a dead pavane for a deader princess. Funny, the first time Ravel said it, ha, but maybe not when one or the other quotes it to one or the other at 6 a.m. Let's get this over with, says one. Let's do this over, says the other. Something about affection. We are walking in the meadow when a rabbit leaps between your legs and you feel his fur brush your calves. And I imagine I feel it too. And I've also compared marriage to binary coding. I still can not quite understand how a computer using just 0 and 1, just on and off, can accomplish all its mysteries. So this poem is called Binary, and it plays around with 1 and 0 in lots of ways. Binary. In those days, there were 2 of us. Sometimes you were the one, sometimes me. Though I often felt nothing, you always on and I off or a little off, a little young, a bit unready. But we worked together, discovered how much we could generate. And so it didn't seem complicated to be separate, single, particulate, lone star, odd star, one and only star in an empty universe. Then we grew paws with little p's, each a perfect 0, off and ought, on or not. The power of nothing did its simple addition under the trees. The grass nixed the morning sun. It was just one great Zippo every day. I've just lost my poem temporarily. The power of nothing did its simple addition under the trees. The grass nixed the morning sun. It was just one great Zippo every day, while our children, our 2 and only, played baseball from dawn to nil, zipped the bat, zilched the ball, from early moon until 0. We switch them now and then like bubbles, watch them pop in and out of existence, though our best psychologists said this was more about sex than numbers. At night, they conspired to seethe like 2 steam engines, puffing their little ciphers up and down the tracks. And my last 2 poems, the older I get, the more I like light. I like it partly because I have floaters and silent migraines, so that my vision is distorted and it's difficult to read unless I have a lot of light. So these 2 poems are about light, something I've written about, I think, most of my writing life. The miseries of light. That it binds the earth, long ropes at dawn, at dusk, tugging at clouds like a parent pulling her child from the sea. That it blossoms for a day, yellow, green, blue, black, disappears. The progression of a bruise. What we know of truth. That it balks like a magpie refusing to talk, or talks on until no one can understand what has happened. Think of those odd pictures of saints, heads like the sun a child draws, bicycle spokes stuck in the scalp like candles. You didn't expect me to be good, did you? Offering my tongue on a spike, my eyes on a plate. So here's what I see. Saint Lucy stumbling through the mist, wearing the lamb fleece light flings on a wall. Let us meet and continue, light-footed in the gray pelt. We've glimpsed so much and understood so little. We have grown tired, like eyes who have seen enough to close themselves. And the last poem. Rain is egalitarian. It falls on the just and the unjust, but light is another thing. What the light sings, not the song of equality, for there is always a hand that stops its passage and leaves traces upon the road, or a government of barns that darkens the goldenrod. Sheep obstruct the grass, and the crows wing the beetle. Even the clouds with their flimsy thoughts throw gray blankets across village and field, so that the child perched on the porch asks, "Where is the sky? Why can't we breathe?" No, light is not the song of equality, which is the song of rain, but a song that shimmers like coins of light, clinking through the oaks and jingling to the road, or wings warbling from branch to branch until they find a place to linger. You see it sometimes in orchards of pears, the tilt of dawn along the trunks, as if they were machines of good fortune, emptying every quarter you've ever spent back into your life. Or perhaps less random, but just as lucky, at the end of day, in a copse of birch, the spendthrift dusk. Thank you all so much.
And thank you. I have to be the one to applaud, as I know everybody else is out there applauding you at their own computers. And they've given you so much wonderful feedback. Lois, that was a beautiful set of poetry. And thank you for taking us on a journey. It is something that we are all needing at this time to go to lands far away, even if it's just in our minds, and through the wonderful words of poetry to take us there. That was just a delight. Thank you so much. So now I'm going to bring up Wanda, our next reader. And so here's Wanda Prasner coming on. And good to see you, Wanda. And so we're gonna put Lois into the background for now. Lois, I'll bring you up at the very end when Wanda's finished. So I'm gonna just minimize you and put you in the corner, kind of like, there we go. And so Wanda, welcome to your reading. You got the crowd all nice and warmed up and ready to go. And we're looking forward to hearing your poems. Take it away.
Thank you, Janie, and thank you, Lois. Thank you so much. Well, welcome everyone, and my thanks to the library, and a special thanks to Hannah and to Schmidl and to Janie, and also to Becky Bowers for their efforts on behalf of this evening's reading. Always a pleasure to read at the Princeton Library. And I'm glad that Lois and I can be here together. We met back in the 80s in a Stephen Dunn workshop. I'll read from my latest book, To Illuminate the Dark, poems that touch upon the light and darkness that define our lives, discovering along the way that there are greater sorrows than our own out there. So I'll begin with, and I'll end with World War II poems. This first one, well, the pandemic has reminded me of what it's been like growing up during a war. Remembering. I'd forgotten the 1940s. An old movie shows USO dances in hangars, local girls unloaded from backs of supply trucks into the arms of hooting and whistling GIs, ready to foxtrot, jitterbug, follow a conga line before shipping out. We made do and did without, like the 8th grade graduation parties my friends planned, I pleading for one. Our apartment house basement would be fine. I'd clean and decorate only the cost of chips and cola, no jukebox. I'd borrow records. Dick Haymes and Helen Forrest together, long ago and far away. Even Glenn Miller's In the Mood. Finally, Dad's okay. details in place like a strategic battle plan. And I danced with Magna Paulson and Richie Sorensen, and they kissed me and spin the bottle in post office. Less, more in those days when we saved fat, metal, rubber, always a salvage drive on, food stamps, gas rationing, 2.5 gallons a week. We went nowhere. These days are like a bad toothache or childbirth, Mom said. You'll forget. And so we did what we could for the boys. Mom volunteered as a nurse's aide. Dad painted black eyelids on his Essex headlights. I bought war stamps. Uncle Edward in the Army and Uncle Willie, the Navy, made it back, but never spoke of it, choosing not to remember. And the next two poems are in exotic places. Yeats said, man is love and love's what vanishes. What more is there to say? I've had a lot to say. The setting for this is Sulawesi, Indonesia. Back toward Manado, with an epigraph from Emily Dickinson. An awful tempest mashed the air, and black as of a specter's cloak hid heaven and earth from view. For my husband, Bob. Surfacing, I raise my mask. See you on the dive boat, waving wildly, pointing back toward Manado, the mainland hidden, a black and blue cloud cover moving our way. I swim and swim, making little headway against the current, and it washes over me again. That day you came to my class, your face gray as these waters. I knew at once someone had died. I stroke and stroke through the furrowed sea, away from the safety of reef and shallow water. You nodded when I asked, was it one of our sons? And when I asked which one, you whispered his name. I remember thinking at the time, it must be my mom or my dad, for then it couldn't be one of my boys. That was 1986. It's when I began to write. And I'm reminded of what Tracy Smith said 2 weeks ago here. Poetry helps me live. Yes. And we're here in Istanbul. I mentioned President Ataturk. He was, like George Washington, a leader on horseback and did a great deal for Turkey. I remember pictures of him. He had these beautiful blue eyes. He was a handsome man. The Pir Palace Hotel, Istanbul, with an epigraph from Walter Whitman. And I say it is as good to be a woman as to be a man, for Dickman. My Turkish friend pours kakut kavakladera as we dine along the Bosphorus on squid, Bay of Marmara bass, baklava, and pears. Insists we visit the Pir Palace Hotel, our city's first elevator. From Sirkeci Station, we climb Galata Hill to the hotel, where I film the coral marble lobby. The palanquin used a century ago to transport Europe's aristocracy after they stepped off the Orient Express. Jackie O was a guest, she says, as we move through corridors, noting brass door plaques. 103, Greta Garbo. 104, Mata Hari. 114, Empress Elizabeth of Austria. 411, Agatha Christie. Above the reception area, she points out narrow balcony windows used by harem women allowed to watch. Then Ataturk Suite 101, his portrait bed, an embroidery predicting his time of death. My friend, who supports his vision for a more modern Turkey, counsels women on their rights, teaches them English, reads them with them, tells me that daily her life is threatened by fundamentalists. But it's Christmas for Stephen. No one needs another grief poem about a son drowned in his college pool. Old news, except to me. And I dare not mention him these decades later to his father, whose sighs go deep enough to alarm. What to do? But it's Christmas. A purple bow on our boy's picture, the house ablaze in holiday lights, and now a live tree. The nurseryman saying to add water each day. The tree's still alive, even though it's been cut down. In the Keats Shelley house in Rome, I bought a postcard of the funeral of Shelley. Louis Edouard Frenier, oil on canvas, 1889. I prefer the painting's fictive depiction to the gruesome reality. Something about the poet's early tragic death being what was really important. Shelley lifelike, as though asleep on the crematory pyre at Shoreline. Mary kneeling in the background. But it wasn't so. When washed up that summer day, his bloated body was unrecognizable. No face, no hands. Italian law mandated a blanketing of lime, immediate burial in the sand. Weeks later, it took an hour and a long trench to excavate him on the day of his cremation. A metal furnace lugged out to the beach. Leigh Hunt, grief-stricken, remained in the coach. Poor Byron soon wandered off and swam to his boat, the Bolivar, getting badly sunburned. His Shelley gone. The best and least selfish man I ever knew, he said. Mary Shelley wasn't there. Trelawney plucked his friend's carbonized heart from the ashes, later gave it to her. I like how the artist made the story his. The bleak winter scene, muted colors, gray somber tones of sky, water, wind-swept beach. The black waiting carriage, the mourners, among them Trelawney, Hunt, and Byron, in dramatic, grieving poses. The wretched, bundled branches. Smoke blows toward and beyond a distant, wide and high horizon line. Hearts and cemeteries. On that trip through England, my sons refused to turn south to go see Shelley's heart in Bournemouth. So we kept on westward to the Tank Museum and the Dorset country road where Lawrence of Arabia crashed his motorcycle. After their return home, I paid homage to Shelley's heart, even visited Keats' house in Hampstead. Now in the Protestant cemetery in Rome, I pay respects to their bones and ashes, one heart here, the other in England. A copy of Keats' poetry found in Shelley's pocket after he'd drowned. They, young as my sons once were, left home and never returned. That time of discovery, becoming, anything possible, when it's impossible to believe death could be a companion on the journey. Epilogue, Remembering a Son and Venice. Just weeks ago in Venice, my grandchildren lit candles for him in an ancient church. I took a photo of a last perfect coral rose in a sheltered courtyard. Years ago in this city, he bought a gold Cartier band. He ran with his brother through the narrow streets at night. Once it hurt too much to remember being bereft of him. Eyes greener than the sea. A sea here in New Jersey I visit with his brother on December days, when rhododendron leaves curl into themselves and hang like prisms from a chandelier. I place lighted candles in windows, wrap gifts for the nephews and niece he never knew. After reading a line from Dante in a Florence restaurant, with an epigraph from Dante Alighieri's Paradiso, love, which moves the sun and the other stars. Dante's not the only one to have lost his love. Gentle memories stir as I savor tortellini in brodo below a mural of him watching his smiling Beatrice walk by for the last time. My love raven-haired, a lodestar, a measure of me lost when he left. No tomorrow ours. A lifetime come and gone, like a plane's fading trajectory, stars navigating a charcoal sky. The tracery of heavenly bodies that rise and fall each day. It is said we steer star to star, not land to land. What solace in paradise? I have learned life is stones as well as flowers. I not there to murmur him gone. No, Dante's not the only one. Well, Saturday was Frank Sinatra's birthday. He would have been 105. He still lives on. So this is December 12th, 2015, with an epigraph from E.B. White. To Sinatra, a microphone is as real as a girl waiting to be kissed. Random news items today. A warbling painted bunting spotted in Prospect Park. The fear of being buried alive peaked in the 1740s, chords and bells used. Old Blue Eyes, his written notes lacked capitals because he was too impatient to press the key, but the soles of Frankie's shoes were shined. He'd be 100 today, and early on said, I was born on the 12th day of the 12th month. Called himself a saloon singer when he worked in his father's Hoboken bar. His sweet lyric baritone, the subtle, elegant nuances, how it caressed the mic. He grew up crooning with big bands, could extend his breath knew exactly where the beat was. No one could sing a song better than Frank Sinatra, said Mel Torme. Teenagers in parked cars in the 1940s came alive to his bell-like tones, he cool and natural in spite of the heat. In bobby socks and loafers, we believed the man behind the voice was kissing us. He had much to do, women to love and marriage. He called his children every night between 5 and 6. His search for deeper expression, an Oscar for dramatic acting. When I sing, I believe, he said, and we did, we do. He's buried in Palm Springs. In his casket, Tootsie Rolls, lifesavers, a bottle of Jack Daniels. Style, real style, my kind of guy. His favorite toast. May you live to be 100, and may the last voice you hear be mine. Well, and because today is the anniversary of Sandy Hook, I had to quickly add this one I had forgotten. Angels, Newtown, Connecticut, December 14th, 2012, with an epigraph by Edna St. Vincent Millay. Childhood is the kingdom where nobody dies. Friday morning on 84, driving New Jersey to Connecticut to babysit our grandchildren for a week. You point out an exit sign. Hey, there's another Sandy Hook. And I remember taking our young sons on outings to the Jersey Shore. We arrive an hour later to the news on TV. 21st grade children, 6 adults shot and killed in Sandy Hook Elementary School. Our grandchildren move closer. The Monsignor at St. Rose of Lima Church, one of the first clergy on the scene, says 6 or 7 were parishioners. One was going to be an angel in our Christmas pageant next week. In Saturday's paper, the killer, as a boy, had attended 7th grade at St. Rose of Lima School. Used his mother's registered guns. She, the first victim, shot repeatedly in the face. Her mother in Florida, unable to make a statement to the press. Below the high school podium bearing the presidential seal for his Sunday visit, 26 small white lit candles. Along roadsides, cut out angels begin to appear. And 2 more. Cobalt Coast Resort, Grand Cayman Island, 2014. Roadside pina colada, the sound of waves reaching land. Scuba tanks being filled, plunked down. Bright green iguanas scamper over black rocks edging the sandy beach. Sea grape leaves, flat and upright against the sky, seem like palms of hands saying, stop. I spot a gray patrol boat barring a small open wooden makeshift craft from coming ashore, blue, tub-like, no mast, some 40 people aboard, both moving out of sight toward Bosun's Bay. Cuban migrants, says Ari, the dive resort owner. They're coming every week now, but can't stay, or they'll be taken into custody, repatriated. Most keep on to Honduras. I've asked to go visit them, take games, he says, but it's not allowed. No, they can't stay here. And takes place, this poem, in Hiroshima Park. I mentioned Sadako, a 12-year-old girl who died. Her statue is in the heart of Hiroshima. Hiroshima Peace Park. I go to the museum gift shop to buy a book on Sadako for Sarah, my 12-year-old granddaughter, the age I was when I first saw the Japanese flag in movie newsreels. It was said the city would never again be habitable. Just weeks later, oleander bloomed. I am not able to look at photographs of destruction, stop instead at a showcase of colorful origami birds, the size of my fingernail, made by Sadako, told she had leukemia nearly a decade after the black rain fell. She believed if she folded 1,000 cranes, the gods would make her well. A year later, a photo of the 12-year-old in her casket with her kokishi doll, flowers, paper, birds. White doves are released on the anniversary. At night, a guide says, families light candles and rice paper lanterns for loved ones lost that summer day. I picture them launched on the O2 River, flowing out to sea, bringing light to dark, like an armada of fireflies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wanda. That was very moving and very stirring, and so thrilled to have had both you. And let's bring up Lois Marie one more time. So thrilled to have both of you as our featured readers. And what we are going to do now is we are going to be switching over to doing our open mic. And our first reader is Gail Mitchell. So Gail, I'm inviting you on screen right now. If you're out there, you're going to get an invitation. And while we wait for Gail to connect, we're going to say good. I'm going to bring Lois and Wanda down for the night. They'll be hanging out in the comments section and they can chat with you there. So thank you once again. Great to see you, if only virtually. And so goodbye to Lois and goodbye to Wanda for tonight. Thank you both so much for being here. Okay, I've invited Gail on. Let's see if we can get her up here. It says that she's accepted and connecting. And next in our list will be Mary Clurman, who I did manage to connect with earlier. So we'll give Gail a minute here. While we wait to see if we can get Gail, I'm going to invite Mary at the same time, just so we can get some people on deck here. I can always scale them down. Whoever gets up first will read first. Oops, somebody's on.
Gail.
And there's Gail. Okay, so we got Mary coming up on deck. Just so we have everybody still here, our next reading will be, it's always on the second Monday of the month. It's usually every other month, so we'll be February the 8th. And we're still working on lining up the readers, but if you keep track of this space or our E's newsletter, we'll let you know who the readings are, the readers are for the next one. And so we're going to get Mary up, and then who else do we have in our order here? And Bill and Barbara after we get you both reading. Okay, so why don't I put myself down in the corner here? Whoopsie, toggle me down. And why don't you go ahead and take it away, Gail?
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me and letting me read one of my poems from my chapbook. This is a poem. This poem is a tribute. This poem is from my book, and it's a tribute to an icon whose plays recall deep memories for those of us of color. And I'm also looking forward to seeing this production of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom with Chadwick Boseman, and Viola Davis. For playwright August Wilson, your Pittsburgh cycle of urban living flashes me backwards to my own city, parents nourishing and most often giving. Daddy, womanizer, 2 wives. Mama, homebody, gets no pity. Nurtures 6 kids through city-fied lives. Newark's red brick 3-storied projects. Stairwells, smelly and shitty. School kids underprivileged. Parents worried. Bullies hug every corner on the way to the library, where books, wet, witty, little bitty me, every single livelong day. Daddy downs shots in his favorite spot. Mama washes clothes in the wringer machine near the vacant parking lot. People of color, mostly forgiving. Some of us are lucky to have a living. Thank you.
Thank you. And Gail, was also, I know that you've been involved with our Lift Every Voice project that we're doing at the library. We want to thank you for that. With the new Kevin Young book, and that's just wonderful. So good to see you.
Okay, I'm going to read a poem that I just wrote in response to Lois and Wanda's readings, and then I'll read a more difficult poem that I had prepared. A poem is so like a life, long or short, bright or dark, too much to talk about, so much to say. We drive economical cars down prosodic streets, decorated by signs, between trees. So much easier to read the sky, the clouds, the leaves. My Mac is convenient, enabling. I can write, read, study, hear so much, too much to swallow whole. So many poems from life, lived, learning. No computer can match a brain, try as it might. No light like a poem, feeling or thinking which is which. Imagination claiming its own territory. There's so much to save. Details, garden dirt, desserts, desires, all memorable, none computed, but within our lives. So short, so long. Good night, sweet dreams. And this is the poem I had prepared. Eden, Garden of Origins. 1. Of you, of me, of children, parents, beginnings and endings, ends, means, ways to live alone, together. Adam was alone with God until Eve, and even then alone, or she would not have felt the need to tempt him, as reported. She wanted to know. God said, that's a sin. But God was written up by men then. 2. Driven out of paradise, garden with a wall. Against whom? Against what? Alone again, 2 as one, divided and together, in a world their own to make. The Hebrew word Eden, desert or plain, meant to Jews and to the painter Hieronymus Bosch, delight, as in garden of earthly delights. What would that have been? Even Bosch wouldn't tell. Sheer delight, delicious and deserved, or decadence, so say scholars now. Such is the ambiguity of all things. Although the sun never settles, man must. That's it. Done. Thank you.
Okay,
And
hang on.
thanks for the evening.
Yes, thank you. Let me get back up here. I've invited our next reader up. Thank you, Mary, and thank you for sharing that poem that you wrote in response. That was just wonderful. And I know that you said that Lois Marie has been your instructor for poetry, so this is a nice connection to have you on here tonight. So thank you for joining us,
Terrific.
Mary. Okay, see you soon. I'll see you at the library. And our next reader is somebody who I guess is fairly new to US1 Poets, I'm told. And so I'm really pleased to welcome to the screen Lakshman Balusu. Take it away.
Hi, thank you. Okay, so my poem is called A Moonlit Night. The peeping stars steal the winning smiles of the moon at the earth draped in its guilt, like a pen takes control of heavy minds. Midnight hours stroll in the murmuring silence of the crickets, like faint leaves in autumn, and strewn on shriveled pathways are atoms of unused talent in the bare furrows of mind. Fireflies like vagabonds spark the chillness of the night like fond memories to the sighs of dreams, and the intangible shadows of invested flora in their night sheen stare like addresses on letters. The clouds, all that remained of the day, with their hues camouflaged by silver, idle in the yonder skies, and the gentle rays pierce the recesses, fitting them to mellow the whiteness. The hills trod by lions and their friends, in drowsy yawns closing in nature's shelters, echo the clods of hurrying feet of those settling in afar mud homes. Betwixt the hills run streams glazed by cooling flakiness of snowy air, melting the night silence into a delicate glee, like mercy flowing through stark reality, melts the latter and its hardcore deeds. This panorama, spread out so grand, evokes a lyrical poem, a poem of morrow to celebrate any night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've invited Marie on, and so glad to have you joining our poets community, and thank you for coming out tonight to do a reading for us for open mic, and I hopefully will see you sometime in person at the library.
Sure,
and
thank
yes,
you.
And Lois Marie said that she's so glad that you read, so thank you, Lakshman, for coming. I've invited Marie on screen, so let's see if we can get her up here with us. Oops. Oh, good timing, Marie. Perfect. Oh, now we're waiting for you to reconnect. We seem to have, I think I got a message from Corey that she had to go, but okay, we have a connection now. Okay, welcome, Marie.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. This might sound a little familiar because I read it a few weeks ago in the group. It's called Returns. Desperate to shed the mad despot, the U.S. awaits election results with fated spirits. Across the world in Sri Lanka, a pod of pilot whales steer for shore and beach themselves. They lie heaving and wiggling, fins askew, flipping uselessly. Villagers swirl into the shallows to tumble them back into the sea. The Navy and Coast Guard fling ropes across the slick backs. They work all night to save our extended family, other members of this club of life. Their simple and beautiful action, saving what needs to be saved, uplifts flagging hearts, reminds brains drenched with fear of our purpose toward each other, a simple and beautiful purpose that we belong to. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, let me get myself back up here. Okay, so we're going to try to get Bill up one last time. And nice to see you, Marie. And let's see if we can get Bill up to close out the night for us then as our last reader. Okay, so he's been invited. So as I said, our next event will be February 8th. The library is actually we're taking a little 2-week break during the holiday from doing a lot of programming here on Crowdcast, but we'll be back in January with more authors and author talks. And there'll be other low-key events going on over the next couple of weeks. Okay, we got Bill back on. Okay, Bill, we are ready for your poem.
Okay, let me just get it and let me just turn it up. Okay, so here we go. Come on. This is so frustrating. Okay, we're opening it up. And then we're going to read it, and we're still working on it. Here we go. Ready? It's called Pair and Set. My old black lacquer box of jewelry opens up to reveal 3 step-out drawers, where on each side I've placed my sparklers. Earrings of silver, gold, some not fancy, but each holds a place in my memory. Lose one, you'll learn from those claim adjusters about a pair and set rule for those losers. No longer together, one is lonely. A pair no more, diminished in value. Like a marriage that you don't continue. A single piece can be thought as worthless before it's recast to becoming precious. Enhanced beyond that original part, just as time can comfort an aching heart.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah,
I really did.
that's a sonnet.
As someone who has lost many earrings, I can understand the whole purpose of that poem. Thank you so much
Yes.
for coming, and thank you for enduring with all the technical difficulties. I'm so glad that we have found a way to make open mic work. So I'm going to say goodbye to Bill now, and we're going to close up the evening. I'm so grateful this time we had such a great group of people willing to come on to do open mic. And of course, what a great pairing between Wanda and Lois Marie. It's really a great way here on December 14th to enter the holiday. Well, we're in the midst of some holidays, to be in the holiday season, to have this poetry to calm us and hear us and get us through. So I think that'll be all for tonight, everybody. And thank you once again. And we will see you soon at the library, hopefully.